No, don't worry.
Um, Good morning, everyone. I am Sasha Piccione. I am a PhD student the last year of at the University of Venice, Ca' Foscari, and my PhD is in economics and management and economics. I am mostly interested into network theory, social network theory, and in particular to understand how relationships, the structural characteristics of relationships among people influence the way in which they behave. I generally worked on opinion dynamics and bound and confidence opinion dynamics and opinion diffusion stuff. But then I met Nicola in my university, and he convinced me to try and look at Wikipedia, at this huge world of Wikipedia, and we started working on this project. This project tries to understand what influences the way in which people discuss, in particular, what influences the way in which people express their emotion on Wikipedia talk pages. The idea is to understand if on the one hand, emotions do have an influence on the way in which people cooperate, are able to cooperate. On the other hand, we don't have much, I mean, we have much of literature regarding what influences the way in which people express emotion, but not when we're in a context like Wikipedia, in which we don't have much context, we don't have much information about the person we're interacting with. So, why is not well? Okay. So talking about the structure, we'll discuss, okay, what is the relationship between communication and cooperation? What is the relationship between the emotion expression and the cooperation? And then we narrow down to a context, which is the computer-mediated communication, in which people do not have many information about the people they're relating with. They don't have the possibility to see the body expressions, the facial expression, and thus to understand the emotion of the other. And then we go directly to Wikipedia. We have collected quite a huge amount of data regarding Wikipedia discussion pages, talk pages, and we try to see what are the aspects that influence the way in which people, on one hand, discuss, and on the other hand, what pushes them to change the way in which they express the emotion. So, the first question is, of course, do we really have to talk? Like, can we just do it very quickly?
Ok. Est-ce que vous êtes toujours là? We have lost you, Sasha. I think.
Yeah, we hear the rest. We hear you, Nicola.
To discuss and to come to.
Sasha, we have lost you during like 30 seconds. So.
Okay.
And we have lost your slide.
Are you okay? Wow, amazing. I don't know why. I'm going to share again. Sorry.
This is because you are on EduRoam, so I think it's quite a bit unstable.
Okay, if it happens again, I will try with the Ethernet. Yeah. Can you see it again? No, you were seeing the wrong one. Sorry. Yeah. Now you should see the right slides.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we are here.
So I was saying that we do need to communicate and to talk when it comes to cooperate, because we need to decrease the uncertainty. The language that we utilize, however, influences the way in which we express creativity and we mix ideas and concepts. The main interesting thing is that, of course, the lexicon is not, I mean, the words we utilize, the way in which we speak is not independent. It depends on our personality, on the relationships we have with the person we're talking with, and on the context. But when it comes to emotion, it's very interesting, because even though we might consider that emotions are not important in professional like context, or in when you have a goal to achieve, well, they do have an importance, as they signal that we share the same values, the same goals, and as well the same intents. it's very interesting that the influence that emotions might have on the outcome of cooperating and collaboration might not be very intuitive. For example, sometimes anger in contexts in which there is high trust among people within the community can be useful, because the expression of anger avoids, keeping inside this anger, and consequently might is to avoid retaliating behaviors. So basically, behaviors that are not positive and that are not communicated to others. At the same time, anger allows people to understand if something is not properly going in the right direction, and not everybody is happy with the outcome of the project. At the same time, the expression of emotions, it signals to others the way in which we should behave, and stresses and highlights the differences in terms of social roles. For example, the way in which I behave with my supervisor or my boss, let's say, signals newcomers the way in which they should behave at the same time and express toward the same person. The problem is then what influences the way in which we express, in particular in the context in which we try and want to cooperate. On the one hand, there is a huge and gigantic literature that looks at the way in which the gender or the hierarchical position influences the way in which people discuss. And but it's also interesting to see that the capability and the possibility to control and utilize a specific language influences the way in which we express. It's very interesting also the fact that knowing more languages allows people to have a wider spectrum of emotions to utilize and communicate to others. But there are also contextual factors, like, for example, what do we know about the other person in terms of social status? What is the relationship with this person? But also, what is my reaction to the emotion expressed by others? And this is what is interesting to us, because we take inspiration from two main and very broad theories regarding emotion reaction to the reaction to the other people expression of emotion. And the first one is the appraisal theory. So basically, according to appraisal theory, every person reacts to a specific stimulus by evaluating that stimulus, depending on personal preferences, depending on personal experience, but also depending on how this person is somehow taught to react to this thing. And it's interesting because we tend to imitate the way in which others behave and others react to something. One very usual and very common example is when you see a fan looking at a football match. It's very interesting because everyone reacts and expresses the same emotion, which is surprise, anger, whatever, in a very, let's say, not common way, but collective way. When it comes, however, to contexts in which we have to cooperate, so it's not about something like passion or some whatever some related stuff. When it comes to a project that we have to cooperate in, the emotions are triggered by a stimulus only if these stimulus are task related, if they are considered to be relevant to the task we have to carry out. So, for example, if someone is, for example, doing properly a job or or a specific task or not. On the other hand, according to the communication accommodation theory and the mimicry, we tend to imitate others, the way in which others react to a given emotion, the way in which others express simply an emotion, to, on the one hand, to somehow allows and facilitate the development of trust when it comes to the exchange of information, to the exchange of task or whatever. On the other hand, we want to signal that we share the same values and the same appraisals regarding specific stimulus, so that we do agree on that. And again, taking back the case of the football fan club, the idea that we share the same way to evaluate emotionally something, the same event, it enforces our social identity in terms of group. Okay, but what happens when we don't have social cues, when you don't have elements that allows us or help us to understand what the other is saying? For example, when you can't see the person. So Generally, this can be, we want to go to computer-mediated communication, which is, of course, when we are interacting with people and we don't see them. We just have either we can have text or we can have other types of signals. And in particular, we're interested in open online collaborative communities. Because in such communities, there is not only the fact that we don't have social cues, but it's also very hard to have an idea of the person we have in front of us, because either they don't disclose much information about themselves, and due to the fact that people can self-select the task in which they want to work in, there is not much stability in the group, so there is not much time or possibility to develop an idea or representation of that person in terms of social characteristics or social status. Usually in these contexts, the development or the usage of ad hoc affordances helps a lot to help people to communicate in a more efficient way. One very simple example is the existence of the possibility to answer to an email. This affordances, meaning that is something that is either structural or either socially developed, is an element that allows me to do something specific and that favors the communication. If we didn't have, for example, the reply button to an email, every time we have to actually reply to an email, we have to specify to which email we're answering to and what we're referring to. By replying to an email, we already give that information. And trying to answer to the question, how can these communities nevertheless try to cooperate? There are quite some considerable part of the literature that think that Sigmergy can help people coordinate. Sigmergy, for those who don't know, is a theory that tries to explain how termites, those developed by looking at termites or ants, they coordinate without communicating. According to Sigmergy, and a termite, whenever they're trying to build a tower or a structure, when they deposit the mud in that specific point, they also deposit a given amount of a specific hormone. The presence of this hormone signals other termites the place and the position in which they should add additional mud. And eventually, the concentration of hormones helps collectively other termites to understand, without communicating or without any given sign, what they should be doing. The thing is that building towers or knowing the fastest route to a given supply of food, which is done by ants, is a simple task. And when it comes to Wikipedia or to open collaborative communities, Sigmergy can explain how people understand what should be done. Because by starting a project or by modifying an article in Wikipedia, I'm signaling others that this element became once again relevant, that we need to work on that. And it might, of course, be significant to others or not. And the significance, so the amount of people, the increasing amount of people working on that specific point, signals others that we should do something about that, but it doesn't tell us or help people understand how it should be done. And here comes our main question, our main topic, which is, why did it go back? Okay, anyway, which is about Wikipedia. We wanted to focus on Wikipedia and understand how people discuss when they try to cooperate and to coordinate the effort of creating a positive, not positive, but properly done Wikipedia article. For us, it's a very interesting case because it's an exceptional case of anonymous cooperation. Generally, researchers that have tried to understand how characteristics, like personal characteristics, influence the way in which people talk on Wikipedia. They do generally signal the huge absence of information, of personal information about people. And it's very interesting also because, as other cases, it's an interesting case of emerging organization. And so it's, as Leo showed, it's very interesting to see how it emerged, what pushed people to starting to cooperate. And in our case, it's interesting because there is no hierarchical conflict resolution mechanism, not a strong one, meaning that there is not somebody that strongly says, okay, we have to do this or that. So people have to somehow manage by themselves what to do and how to do it. At the same time, this generally implies that there are general fights and aggressive discussions regarding what should be done. And even though some aspects can be very trivial in the study, when we were checking what we were doing, the data we were collecting, we also checked the discussions, and they were very trivial and yet very aggressive. Nevertheless, the fact that people can discuss and can argue and can fight, according to some scholars, it increases the value of the content that is posted. Because if we fight a lot, even on the most trivial thing, the fact that after 1 year we do agree on a very small detail, it means it should signal that the detail is quite valuable, because it's the representation, is the synthesis of more than one opinion. Additionally, for us, and for me personally, it's very interesting because according to some scholars, it appears to be a self-organizing bureaucracy. So to understand in terms of the way in which people develop rules and how they do behave with this kind of machine that they created, not they personally, but as a group of people that don't know each other, they created rules and they do respect them somehow. When it comes to what we actually did, so we went to the discussion pages and we want to evaluate the emotion. In this case, we consider the valence and arousal. The valence is the pleasantness of something, so a positive word or a negative word, and arousal is the emotional charge of that emotion, meaning that maybe one word can be very charged in terms of very powerful in terms of emotions. There's very huge emotion within it, while others have no emotions or very we would say neutral. And we decided to use these 2 dimensions because they were elaborated and evaluated. I mean, the language was elaborated and evaluated by Warren et al. With a huge survey, and it has been these are 2 emotions that have been used quite a lot on Wikipedia, and there are many studies, and we are quite stable on that, we can say. For what regards strictly the evaluation of the comments, we used word frequency averaging, meaning that we just took each word of each comment and give a value and then made a simple mean. And for the missing words, we use the word embeddings. So if we don't have a word, we will look for the closest word that we were missing. Now, considering what we said in the beginning, we have several hypotheses. These are mostly attemptive hypotheses because we still need to refine some aspects. So the first one, in reality, what we mean, and this had to be rephrased, is that we hypothesize that people are generally quite stable in the emotion they express in time, meaning that, of course, there is some variance, but this variance stays on, let's say, on neutral trend, meaning that they don't change that much in time. They have some variations, but that variation is not due to some exogenous aspects, like they learned something, they became better persons or something like that. The second hypothesis is that the arousal or the valence of a comment, so not something related to the person, but just a comment, is positively related with the arousal of the valence of the context in which it was posted. So the higher the valence of or the arousal of the context, the higher the arousal or the valence of the comment posted. And eventually, and this is I think the most interesting part of this paper, is the idea that these 2 aspects, so the personal characteristics and the context, they are complementary, meaning that on the one hand, the value of a comment depends on how the person speaks, the author of the comment speaks, but at the same time, how the context pushed that person to change let's say his general emotional expression. So if, for example, it pushed the person to change and to be more aggressive, or to be, on the contrary, less aggressive, let's say. We wanted, of course, for the hypothesis 2 and 3, we had to specify also the concept of context. So on the one hand, we considered the entire page, that, of course, was visible to the person at the moment in which they posted the comment, the thread, of course, in which the comment was posted, and eventually the dyadic relationship, meaning that if I post something and maybe I had previous discussions, sorry, I answered to a comment and I had previous discussions with the person I'm answering to, I want to see if maybe I already have an idea of how that person behaves, and so somehow I do react to that. The specifications are, of course, the same for the hypothesis free. So we do check the difference regarding the page, the difference regarding the thread, and also the difference regarding the perceived emotion of the dyadic relationship. For what regards data collection, we wanted to avoid. We started from the pages. We wanted to avoid any kind of already hot topic, so we went and looked for the featured articles that were featured during the month of December of 2019. The idea was to avoid any kind or something that was strictly related to COVID. We didn't. It was not very success as idea, but somehow it varied a lot. From that, we took these 31 articles and we checked the hyperlinks present in the articles. And we added those pages to the dataset. We repeated this process a couple of times using the same, adding every time the pages, and we ended up with nearly 300,000 pages. And then we went to each page and we collected all the comments in the talk pages. It's very important to notice that in this case, we didn't take the comment that starts a thread, because of course, starting a thread, there are many cases in which people just start a thread and nobody's answering. And the problem is that we lack so many dimensions. So we just decided to avoid those ones because they couldn't be considered as a reaction to something, but just signaling something. It can be somehow useful maybe to compare, but it was not our intent. Then we collected all the informations about the people that were authors of the comments we collected. The idea was to see, okay, if we have something related to the person, so there is some person-specific language, what is causing it? Is there any kind of behavior that is somehow related to the way in which the person talks and expresses emotions? And then we did some data elaboration and the analysis. For what regards the Peretz hypothesis, we don't have an answer. We have an idea on how to tackle this problem. Our idea is to treat the comments of each person as a time series, and to see what is the role that seasonality, the role that noise has, and what is the variance in time, and what is the role of a trend, if there is any. The idea is to go for a clustering analysis, so mostly an explorative approach, and see what is the share of people that all in all do not change much. I don't know if you can see here. Where is my pointer? Yeah. Can I enlarge? No. The actual span of the variation for this person, this is the observation of a single person a long time. The actual variation is not huge. It's between 3.82 and 3.66, which is not very much if you consider that the spectrum can be from 0 to 6, and the overall spectrum of our of all the sample is way wider. The idea is to try to see in this way if we can assume that yes, taking the mean of the person can be quite solid and as a representative of all the expression of the emotion they expressed during time. This is still under discussion. Well, for when it comes for H2 and H3, considering the amount of data, and considering that people in reality, they are quite, let's say, average, meaning that they're quite well condensed and around the mean of the overall sample, we wanted to see the extremes of this distribution. So we took the top, the most aggressive, let's say, in terms of arousal and the valence, and the least 10%, so the first decile and the ninth decile, to see when people actually exaggerate in terms of the aggressiveness, let's say, of the comment. And we did so in order with both cases. So for the when it comes to the actual value, to the absolute value of the comment, and when it comes to the change of the person. So to see when people actually changed a lot the emotion they expressed in a comment. We did that when we used logistical regression models. In this specific model, we had some problems with collinearity, but we want to tackle that. What is interesting to us is that there is indeed a role played by the context. In this case, we are trying to predict and to see what is the role of this of the contextual factors on the likelihood of a comment to be extremely high in terms of valence. And we see that when it comes to valence, the contextual valence, so what the person sees, has quite an importance. On the contrary, when it comes to the characteristics of the author, so what did the author did in the past, there is not either much significance or the magnitude does not appear to be strong. We still want to explore the possibilities here, as it might be that we might have some U-shaped relationships, or we still don't know. Again, which is still an exploratory process. When we, however, consider the role that the perceived valence and the perceived valency of the context, so not the absolute value, but how the author of the comment is perceiving the context in which they are. So they're again evaluating it. We can see that again, we don't have here much collinearity problems. We did some specific tests for that. And it's very interesting that the role of the page appears to have negatively affected likelihood of having a high valence comment. Our idea for this was that it was a problem of the way in which defined the page we should refer to. In this case, we consider the entire page before the discussion page before the comment was posted. So in some cases we have huge pages, and actually in these cases the what can I say, the mean of the page appears to be quite a mean of the population. So if we kind of have that problem, we wanted to correct that by repeating this process and going on the history of the page and check what was the actual page that the person saw. And the same apply, we have similar results when it comes to the relative valences. So when the person changed the way in which they express. So if we have, earlier it was about the focus on the comment, so without any relationship with the person, with the author, and now we're considering what is the difference between what is the case in which the person increased particularly the way in which they express the emotion they express, the intensity of the emotion they express. So if differently from before, we could see that with similar values, similar results for the arousal, but what was interesting is that when we consider the absolute values, it appears that we have some kind of orthogonality in terms of the two dimensions we considered, the arousal and valence. But when it comes to the relative, so this when there is a change in the way in which people express the emotion, the intensity, we lose such orthogonality. We don't understand why. We still have some questions regarding the way in which what is the cause of this. And also we're not, we want to see, to disentangle it, because why do we see, for example, in the dyadic case, but not, for example, on the thread? And very interestingly, the final thing is that the thread appears to be the context, context dimension with a higher magnitude in terms of the likelihood of having an extremely high valence in the comment. So yeah, the problem is that, and our hypothesis is, our assumption or assumption conclusion of what the thread is that, well, if I'm commenting something, if I want to intervene in a discussion, I will do weight a lot what I'm actually reading, so the discussion I'm getting into. While if I am, well, I will not consider much the page, because the page mostly might be too huge and maybe I'm not interested on many things. We still need to somehow understand this and how to not prove, but to explore this aspect. Again, we have some missing parts and we want to understand that. If you have some further suggestions when it comes to the hypothesis number one, which is that people during time do not change, do not have a significant trend, but they have some kind of variance that is okay, acceptable, please feel free to do it. And thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't annoy you too much. And yeah.